On this Wednesday morning, it's time for our Allied Cooperative program. I have Nick Schuster. He's the Livestock Production Specialist working out of that Auburndale Seymour office. Our corn isn't even in the bin yet, but we're already talking about commodity contracts. Why should we be looking into it now?
There's several ways to look at why we should be looking at contracting commodities. A couple would be, is the growing condition in your area or the United States, do you think it's good or bad? Do we need to maybe look at the trends of that? And another thing is some people like just to book commodities, and so you know what you're paying for feed for the year, and you kind of can book out your budgets and make sure everything's kind of in line for either yourself or the accountant.
What commodities available to contract?
The most usual contracts or commodities we talk about are usually corn, canola, soybean meal, exceller meal, soy hulls, corn gluten feed, or now called corn protein feed. And then another one would be wheat mids, which would be something like we would talk about when booking, like, say, locking in, like, robot feeds and stuff like that.
And what about the time frame for contracting? Do we need to have a lot of lead-in time, or is this something that can be turned quite quickly?
It can be turned quite quickly. You can really contract feeds any time in the year, basically. Most common time people start looking at contracting is about May time, when people are starting to plant and can see where things are going, to right to harvest are like the most common things, because usually around harvest prices go up. And then you have to wait a little bit because they usually bounce back and forth a lot during harvest, because people are guessing on how many bushels have been brought in for crops. So that varies a little bit, but usually I would say May to September.
Now, what happens if we have made a commodity contract and it isn't enough to fulfill our needs?
So we usually contract commodities in 6-month increments. And when you say you only book for a certain period and you're checking with the mill or your Allied Co-op member, and you notice that you are getting close to the contract period and you're going to be under what you were planning on it, a good way to look at it is, obviously you want to use up your old contract by the end of the period, but you can check see what spot prices are, and potentially spot prices, if they're lower than your contract, maybe you need to get a load or two of just spot price commodities and then use up your contract at another time. That's another way if you under-contracted your commodities.
So with that 6-month time period, is it a little bit fluid during the times of the year? You mentioned between May and September, but can we contract at other times of the year as well?
Yeah. A lot of people like to only contract for 6 months at a time and then reevaluate where they're at. So if you want to contract during the harvest period, so you know that those prices are usually lower during the harvest time, contracting before September, you can do that. And then a lot of people like to contract in the wintertime, say December and January, when the markets are more stable. People will contract again for the next 6 months or get through spring.
And who should we be reaching out to for amounts and contracting numbers?
Any of our allied specialists are available to talk with that, or if you call into the mills in Seymour and Auburndale, we have commodity outreach people that are looking at stuff like that. And if you are a prospect or a customer and want to be updated, we are. If you give us your email, we could provide a month or weekly email with market trends and commodities as we're working on that program.
Always good to plan ahead and contract some of our commodities with Allied Cooperative, and that's our Wednesday morning program with Nick Schuster. He's the Livestock Production Specialist working out of that Auburndale Seymour area. And I'm Jill Welke.